social, mobile, and other key stuff affects the behavior of their customers. He then turned that knowledge into planning effective marketing strategies. And now he's training the next generation of marketers to do the same. I'm very excited for his talk. Jason's going to be talking about the difference between a product line and a brand and giving us all the information we need to know to help our students. So let's welcome Jason to the stage.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending the session. Thank you, Stu Kent, for inviting me to this beautiful setting. I'm going to give you, this talk's going to be about content marketing. Well, let's start here. So it's called Brands, let's have something to talk about. Who is this guy talking? Well, this is me. I'm Canadian, so I have like the Canadian flag type motif going here. I've been in marketing agencies for quite a while, and the thing we do whenever we do our pitches to new clients is we show the logo salad of everything we've ever worked on. And so here's the logo salad of every brand that I've ever worked on. Some will be familiar. And I've recently made the move into academia. I've been part-time for a couple of years, and then now I'm a rookie full-time professor. And I was tasked with designing a new content marketing course at Seneca College. And what I'm about to give you guys is a bit of a trailer. So let's start with, how did content marketing become a thing? Well, if you do a Google Trends, it'll look like, we had social media marketing for a while, and then content marketing starts around 2010 and just starts taking off. And if we look at content strategy versus social media marketing strategy, it looks like, around 2009 it starts taking off and kind of surpasses social media. Well, it's not quite true that content started just very recently, although it's very recent that now all of a sudden the colleges want to have us start courses. Content marketing is over 100 years old. I think one of the very first ones starts with a couple brothers from France, the Michelin brothers, who had a tire company for what was then a newfangled invention, which they probably called the horseless carriage, and we call the car. And what they realize is that early on, theirs is a distress purchase. Okay? Theirs is a product that you have to buy, but you really resent paying for. Like insurance or dental work. So what they realized is, well, what if we turn it on its head? What if we create a guide, an aspirational guide, to not talk about the tires themselves, but the places you go, the people you'll see, the amazing places you'll dine while riding on their rubber tires. Inadvertently, they launched the road trip. And by encouraging people to use tires, to drive more, they end up burning more rubber, which encourages demand for their product. And that's probably the first piece of content marketing, when we started talking like consumers talk about what their aspirations, not why should I buy this tire. Fast forward over, we get the IKEA catalog. Yes, it's just a catalog. Okay, that's not content marketing. No, it is actually, because they don't show the products one by one. They show it in their rooms. And actually, recently, IKEA created the Simpsons living room and the Friends living room using only IKEA products, and they posted that on social media. It was pretty cool content. The IKEA catalog is so popular, it now ranks up there with the Bible and the Holy Quran as the most widely distributed and most read publication any given year. We go into the 80s. And for those of you I grew up in the 80s, so I grew up on this. G.I. Joe was a comic book and then later a TV show based on a toy, the first one, and essentially was a marketing vehicle for the toys. And then we get into the modern era. Now we get into the digital era where you saw that hockey stick of content marketing going up. So you have Nike Plus. Anyone have runner friends that post their runs from Nike Plus or MyFitnessPal, at Strava, etc.? So that was the first user-generated content, all the way to right now where we got the Lego where the Lego movie's basically doing the G.I. Joe thing, just much better. And ASMR, which some of my students just told me about. It's a thing on YouTube, and Reese just launched an ASMR thing on. It's basically it's like background noise to keep you mindful. And I learn again. One of the things I love about being digital marketing is you get to learn things from your students. And so then I saw this. I'm like, oh, that's that thing they were talking about, and now marketers have already caught on. 9 in 10 organizations market with content. 78% of CMOs think custom content is the future of marketing. Whether it's B2C or B2B, doesn't matter. They all think content marketing is really important. And according to the Content Marketing Institute, you get 3 times more leads than paid search. Now, any of you guys familiar with the Gartner hype cycle from Gartner Research? Yeah, we got a hand there. Okay. So Gartner talks about when new technologies come aboard, what happens? Well, think of how social media happened. It started with blogs and then Facebook and then Twitter. And during my career, I rode this wave. I became a social media strategist, and I spent a lot of time talking to clients on clients were just, explain to me the social media. Until the hype got too much, it became, let's do social media marketing. And then clients were coming to us saying, hey, we need to be this. What's our Facebook strategy? Hey, we just hired this Facebook strategist. And they say, hey, what about insert new marketing platform that the manager's kid is on? And why? And they come to the agency and say, why aren't we on it? What should we be doing on it? And so now we spent all our time, from bringing social media up to like putting the brakes on clients and trying to make things a little bit more manageable, a little more business-like. And then we end up in the plateau of productivity where we realize, actually, it's not about the social platforms. It's about content. Now, the thing I'm worried about is what happens if content goes through the exact same life cycle, hype cycle. So what I designed this content marketing course to do is to train the next generation of marketers so that they do it reasonably and it doesn't go through this massive high and low. So I tell my students, content is not copy, content is not media, content is not entirely messaging. Content is the stuff you talk about. And by you, I mean you as consumers, not you as marketers. Remember going back to that Michelin guide example. It's what people care about, not what they care about not what you care about your product. Content is the substance of what your brand does and the essence of how you help your customers. So in this content marketing class, one of the things I do is I do not start with platforms or technologies. Why? Because Steve Jobs said so. And if Steve Jobs isn't good enough or whatever, because Forrester Research says so. They say when you do any marketing strategy, forget digital or otherwise, you start with the people. That's why it's called people-focused content. Who are they? What are their needs? What are their attitudes? What are their values, beliefs, etc.? Then you look at objectives, 2 objectives. You look at your company objectives, you look at the consumer's objectives, and you draw a Venn diagram, and somewhere in the middle is probably where your content marketing objective should be. Then we go into strategy. How are we going to achieve this? What are we going to do as marketers to help us achieve our goals? And last, we go to the tactics and technology. Yes, we're going to go on Facebook. Yes, we're going to go on Instagram. Yes, we're going to go on TikTok because that's the hottest new one. But don't go on it just because it's the hottest new one. So we start with people, and then so how do we show people? Well, we say identify your target. So one way to do that is you do an empathy map. An empathy map was created by Strategizer, and you can spend an entire class on an empathy map, entire class exercise on this. So we're talking about who are we empathizing with and what is the job we have to do. Pick a product as an example. It could be sneakers. It could be us buying Stew Kent. What do they see in the world? What do they say? And what do they do? And be mindful of the say-do gap, which happens. I say I eat healthy all the time, but then I do bacon double cheeseburger, right? So mind that say-do gap. What are they hearing, which is basically who's influencing them, and then what are their pains and gains. And the way you structure this class is you can have them shout out one or two of them. So you can structure it as a brainstorming exercise. You can, if you have a big class, divide them into separate groups and have each group take one of those 7 roles and then have them rotate, have them add on to what the last group did. And you can do it as a clustering exercise. So what I like to do is I do this very old school. I give them Post-it notes, and then I have the students just write down what they're thinking and post it on each one. And then you come up to the board and you start clustering the Post-it notes. So if a bunch of students all said the same thing, it's probably right. If you look at the outliers, it's one of two things. It's either really horrible, but with every bad idea, you can sometimes turn it into a good idea, or it's absolutely brilliant. It's always one of those two. So you look at both the outliers and the clusters, and you end up with an empathy map. But that's not the end product. Then I show them what that should turn into is a persona. And so then they always love real-world experiences. So I show them a persona that I created for a client. This is a school librarian. And you can make this an assignment. So you can say, take the stuff you have at the empathy map, create a visual design of the most relevant parts of it. And I tell them, I have no design skills whatsoever. I made this one myself. I did the same thing for the same client for an elementary school teacher. So take the main elements, and here, in this case, desires, pains, roles, who they influence by, who they influence. And students, you can make one yourself. You too can make one yourself. This is what happens. Then I show them, this is what happens when you have a designer to work with. So when you work with a designer, you can create a persona that looks like this. This is Jennifer Campbell. She's a mom. And yes, I put different elements of it depending on what's relevant. So a quintessential quote, her attitude, what does the day in her life look like? What's the media that she consumes? What restaurants does she go to? What are her habits with the category? In this case, it was snacks. What are her technographics, which is how does she use different technologies? So we talk about, actually, sorry, I saw you want to take a picture. So part of content marketing, too, is that you guys should generate the content. Feel free, Instagram, I'm at JDOJC, because you want user-generated content. So once you know the person, we've got to talk about their journey from I have a need to I bought your product to I use your product. And I didn't know what my time slot was going to be, and I know I'm the only thing between you guys and lunch at this point. But the example I had was the customer journey for groceries, for buying food. And I picked this because I spent some time at Loblaw Shoppers. Well, Loblaws is one of the biggest supermarkets in Canada. So I know it quite intimately, and I've worked with a lot of food brands. So this becomes another class, the customer journey. You can spend a whole class. You can spend actually 2 classes on customer journeys, I find. So what I do is I have the class brainstorm. All right, what do you think the customer journey is? And they start talking about it. And they always end up getting bucketed into these 4 areas. Planning. It's usually what's for dinner. Shopping. Cooking. And eating. Pretty straightforward. Sound familiar? So then what do? Well, so they brainstormed this, and I said, okay, in each step, what is the job? What's the job or need? In this case, I need to figure out what to make. So what kind of content am I going to look for when I'm figuring out what to make? Well, especially in today's day and age, it's food porn. You know, those tasty videos? With those overhead shots and it looks so good. Or those recipes, but it's those very visual recipes that we look for. And then, because my last agency, our slogan was feel it or forget it, we always said, how do you want them to feel? What are they feeling before? Anxious, but how do we want them to feel? Inspired. And then you gotta find some research about it. Now, depending on the course, I kind of just have them look for. It's not a market research course, so I don't have them do primary research. But I say look around our resources. In this case, I use Google Trends, this is one I found. This seems to be a trend actually across the world. For whatever reason, we tend to do things. We tend to look for recipes any given Sunday. And the only exception is long weekends. So Memorial Day, that's where you see the Sunday and Monday kind of shift going. Shopping. Well, my job here is I got to buy the ingredients, and my need is I want to get in and get out. Okay? That means there's not a whole lot of content you can do. You're on a mission when you go shopping. So the things that you can help are maybe like coupons, samples. I know there's been stuff with QR codes. Sometimes it works. Rarely it does. We're actually not on our phone that much when that's actually the one time we try to, we're just shopping. We're just getting stuff. And grocery is one of the last ones that are really going online, although it's going online with a vengeance with Instacart and Amazon Fresh. So that's going to change a lot. And the feeling at the end of it, whether you're grocery shopping online or offline, is mission accomplished. I've done it. Well, what are data points about it? So, apologies for the Canadian examples, but I've been in that world for a while. Turns out that half of us have a list, half of us do not. That hasn't changed in years, so it's something about the psychological makeup of us. We're either listers or on-the-fly people. If you have a list, only 25% actually use a mobile app for said list. There's been so many brands trying to create the ultimate shopping list for mobile, and none of them have really, really fully succeeded or had a breakout unicorn moment. And when you do use grocery apps, most of it is for looking for coupons at the end of the day or getting your personalized coupons. Cooking. Well, now my job is to make a tasty meal, and that inspiration recipe is turned into an instructional recipe. So for inspiration, I just need to see it look good and get a general idea of things, which is why the video works well. But now I need step-by-step instructions. And what I want to feel is, that smells good. Well, and this keeps going up and up and up. When I first looked at this, it was about 52% about 3 years ago. It's now 68% of millennial moms are watching food videos, usually on a tablet, while cooking. So there's a tablet in the kitchen, which means you need to structure your content for that. And then the new thing, of course, is voice assistants like Google Home and Alexa, and they've reported that recipes is really huge. And I know actually my nanny uses that when she's cooking for my kids all the time. So then we get to eating. And our content isn't done when we're eating, because what do you see every time we enjoy a tasty meal or we see that beautiful spread? I take out a picture. Or I have to show everybody that picture. Because food is one of the #1 hashtags on Instagram, and also the one, I think, #1 or 2 among the top 5 on Pinterest. Everyone wants to look at those food recipes. So we've gone through the journey. Now we have to put content marketing against that journey. And so we summarize it. And then we have to map it to channels. And that's why I said it could be 1, could be 2 classes. Because you can spend a whole other class going through the journey and all the data points that we learned about each step of the journey, and then say, okay, let's pick a digital channel. And where does each channel fall? So when I'm planning, yeah, I'm searching for recipes and I'm going to land on your website and I might be trying to get inspired by my friend's Facebook or Pinterest or mobile. And when I'm shopping, really mobile's the only place I have some content. And when I'm cooking, yeah, I might be looking at your website, but we know about the mobile thing. So you have the students come and brainstorm which channels are important to them. And then you take it a step further and say, what should I do on each channel? And then I show them this. I say, okay, we've now chunked out these little contents and little channels, but really what you need is big rock content, because producing a bunch of little chunks of content is difficult. But big raw content's big. That's where you have a main piece. So Stu Kent's going to have videos of all of us speaking and stuff like that. But you can then chunk that out. They can say, hey, we can turn each speaker's thing into a blog post. We could have guest posts. We can create an infographic over what happened here today. We can turn chunks of it into a video or webinar. We can create checklists. So I tell my students, think of when you're producing one big piece of content, let's say you hold an event. Every event generates its own content. Some user-generated, so you can curate user-generated content, and some that you can create yourself. So create a lot of these. And then I show them an example. So the same recipe that works on mobile when you're shooting it. So you shoot an inspirational piece, and you shoot a step-by-step instructional piece, and then you post it on Facebook in one way, you post it on Instagram another way. All for the same recipe. Now, to have students go through that whole exercise and do it as an assignment can be daunting. So what I do is I say, look, here's the thing. All organizations have content that they create. They just don't necessarily know it. So do a content audit. And I always turn the tables on us. I say, do a content audit on Seneca College. You're the target. You're the student. How did you become a student here? Go through your own customer journey. And I have a lot of international students, so I always separate it out. I'm like, you can do it as a domestic student or an international student, because they have a very different customer journey to getting here. What kind of existing content is there? Is it helpful? Is it not helpful? And every company has to go through this. So that becomes, I make that an individual assignment, and then for the group assignment, what they have to do is I give them a client. Usually I find some small business. We also use a platform at Seneca called Ripen, R-I-I-P-E-N, and that's where they match college, higher education institutions with small businesses, so you can get projects. And I have them do a full content marketing plan for that small business. So at the end of the day, the holy grail is what you want to do is create the right content to the right person at the right time, at the right stage in their journey. Which means we're not really talking about copy and campaigns and launches. Not that those aren't important, you're still doing them. But when we're talking about content marketing, we're talking about overall programs. We're talking about longevity. We're talking about being really nimble and trying to bring in, improvise based on news events or based on things that are going on. And thinking of content as an asset that you have. I love this quote from Joe Polizzi of the Content Marketing Institute. Focus not on helping the seller sell, but helping the buyer buy by understanding their journey and giving them the right content for that part of the journey. At the end of the day, what you want your content to do is help, inspire, engage, inform, educate people. So I hope I've done some of this in this talk for you guys, and now it's your turn to talk and generate content for me. Does anyone have any questions? Sorry, wait, I think you're going to get a mic coming towards you. And sorry, and thank you guys.
I don't know if they're clapping for you or me, but I'll take it. We talk a lot about customizing content now to very specific individuals, not overall personas. And, you know, I envision a point where maybe like Facebook will be able to feed us content with regards to what does each individual like. Now, it's very easy to find because they like stuff. So if I like a NASCAR, if I follow NASCAR, I'll like NASCAR. So I envision a point where Facebook feeds us that like, and maybe Google or somebody then translates content based on NASCAR. Do you envision something like that into the future?
Oh, it's happening right now.
Yeah.
So at Loblaws, for example, you have an app, and the coupons you get are based on the previous purchases you've made. So everyone gets their own digital coupons, which gets redeemed at checkout. And at the start, I think it's expanded now, but at the start, you had 6 coupons, 4 of which was something you probably would have bought anyway, and 2 were something that you'd probably explore, and the algorithm kind of figures out, oh, well, you liked, or you buy a lot of blueberries, maybe you should try blackberries or something like that. I'm probably oversimplifying, but so that's happening right now as it stands. How many of you have not bought something on Amazon and keep seeing ads for that thing you didn't buy pop up in your feed? That's personalized remarketing. Or we all booked a trip here, and chances are we probably searched through a bunch of different websites and we bought it off one or bought one part of it off one, and then all of a sudden you're getting adjacent stuff from all the others. So I bought the airline ticket. Oh, here are hotels in West Yellowstone. Here. So that's happening right now already. So it's going to get more personalized over time, for sure. I think we just have to be careful with the creep factor, and we have to be really mindful of legislation coming in like GDPR.
Excellent presentation, by the way.
Thanks. Any other questions? What we got? Hold on, the mic's coming, because then anyone can hear you.
Marilyn Eastman from Morningside College. Just wondering how you help students create content. I mean, we're really good at marketing, about talking about content and that sort of thing, but how do you get them to create good content? And any tips you'd have there would be great.
So the easiest thing is you make it an assignment for marks. So that way they're forced to. But then, of course, you want to give them the tools to do so. So I always point them to things like Canva. At Seneca, actually, every student gets access to Adobe Creative Suite, so they have the whole gamut to work with. The issue about the creating content too is you end up with a diverse set of students, and some of them want to do it and love to do it and do it anyway, and others say, well, I want to be a marketer. I would be getting other people to do it. And so my answer to them, I go back to the persona that I created myself. I said, look, sometimes you don't get the resources, number one, and number two, it helps when you create it yourself, when you get that hands-on experience, you start understanding the strategic aspect of it a lot more. So what I do, the other thing I do is I give them a variety of ways to give me the content. So I have one assignment where they have to do 5 different posts, but they're not all blog posts. I say, like, you have to pick different ways. One can be a video, and Adobe Spark is a very easy video creation platform, so if they're intimidated. So you got to make a video, you got to make an infographic, you got to make a series of tweets, you got to make a meme, and there's like tons of free meme generators. I give them a variety of options. They can pick, like, say, 4 of 8. And that way, those who are uncomfortable with, like, oh, I'm not that visual, I'm like, well, then do the more text-oriented ones and vice versa. Any more? We good to go. All right. Oh, wait.
Thank you. Great presentation. And one quick question was, I know you talk a lot about the process of through which students might be able to go through they go through user persona and customer journey and actually creating content. Do you get to do anything about after they have created content and then experimentation, like A/B testing with content and stuff like that, or?
So it was actually once I met Stu Kent and saw the Mimic Social, where they actually get the real-time feedback, which I'm incorporating into the new content marketing class. I know it sounds like a shameless plug for Stu Kent, but it's really, but to your point, one of the reasons the simulation is so good is because it's really hard to do proper A/B testing unless you go out into the real world, and then it could be dangerous, right? Like no client's going to give a student group that kind of thing. And I don't know, even if like I want to give them, okay, so I've got my own personal site. Do you want to create content for me? And I could moderate that, but then it would feel disingenuous and almost self-serving. So it's been really hard. I haven't so with Stu Kent Mimic Social, I used it a few years ago when it was in its early stage, so I'm going to try it again this time. And that's so far the main one to at least get that feedback of A/B testing.
Is this a content marketing class, or is this an overall digital?
So it's a content marketing class that's going to sit in what's currently called the social media grad certificate, and is going to be changed into a digital marketing management grad cert.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Any other hands? Oh, we got another one from Marilyn.
Yeah. Just a question as to where content marketing fits in the curriculum. Do they have to? What are the prereqs? Do they have to have principles and then like an advertising or an IMC class and then this, or not that?
No, that's a good question. It really depends where it falls in. So I bring elements of content marketing into the undergrad digital marketing course. So it's just one part of the bigger digital marketing course. The content marketing course I created is going to happen it's only a 2-semester grad cert, so it just happens in first semester. And they're taking it co-requisite with social media content creation. So they'll teach them like more the mechanics. So in that one, they teach them more the mechanics of content creation. And then in my class, they do strategy. With the undergrad program, they got to do it all at once, so that's where I had to encourage all the other content creation tools. Yeah.
In the undergrad class, do you put in all of this in a couple of classes, or do you shorten it, or the presentation you had, is it based on your grad cert?
So the presentation actually I did the undergrad class first, and then I turned it into the grad cert. So the presentation I have is actually it was originally based on workshops that I did with clients. So I did a 2-day workshop on personas and customer journey with a client of mine. I turned that into a student version, which you have the luxury of more class time because you can change it over different sections. What I'd say is, to make it to answer your question more practically, is empathy map would take a class. Customer journey could take 2 to 3 classes. And then after that, it becomes more assignments. After that. Okay. Well, there's no more. Thank you very much.